Thanksgiving at my grandparents' colonial in Westport had always followed a script: too much food, too much history, and the quiet competition of who had done well. This year, I showed up with a borrowed coat and the kind of smile you practice in car mirrors. I'd been laid off 3 months earlier when the startup I worked for folded. I told everyone it was reset. In reality, I was rotating between friends' couches and a short-term sublet I couldn't afford past December. I hadn't told my grandparents. Pride can make homelessness sound temporary. Halfway through dessert, my grandfather set down his fork. "Why," he said, not loudly but clearly, "is an elderly couple living in the $1 million vacation home I bought for you." Conversations thinned like someone had lowered the volume on the room. My sister Emily stopped mid-reach for the pie server. I felt heat rise in my face, then disappear just as quickly. "What are you talking about?" I asked. My voice didn't shake. "I'm homeless right now." The word hung there, homeless, too heavy for a dining room with polished silver. Grandpa frowned. Not at me but at the idea. "The house in Vermont. I wired the funds last spring. It was supposed to be in your name." Emily's hand trembled. It was small, almost invisible. But I saw it. "There must be some confusion," she said quickly. "We structured it for tax efficiency. I remembered signing a few documents months ago. Emily had said it was easier if she handled the closing while I focused on getting back on my closely. She was the organized one. I was the risk taker." Grandpa didn't argue. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. "Richard." He called across the room to his longtime attorney, who had just started his coffee. "Would you mind clarifying something for me?" Richard didn't look surprised. He stood, adjusted his glasses, and walked over. Grandpa kept it simple. "Who owns the Vermont property?" Richard hesitated only long enough to choose precise words. "Technically, it's held in trust. Emily is listed as trustee. The beneficiary is Daniel, pending transfer upon fulfillment of a stability clause." "Stability clause?" I repeated. Richard nodded. "Employment verification and proof of primary residence for 6 consecutive months." No one had ever mentioned a condition. I looked at Emily. She looked at the table. "I was protecting you," she said softly. "You make impulsive decisions. I didn't want you selling it or losing it." I wanted to argue. But what came out instead was steadier than anger. "When were you planning to tell me I had to qualify for my own gift?" Silence. The kind that doesn't ask for forgiveness, only time. Grandpa leaned back in his chair. His voice, when it came, was calm. "I didn't buy that house to test him." He turned to Richard. "Begin the immediate transfer. Remove the clause. And audit the trust." There it was, the shift, explosive, procedural. Final. Emily's husband opened his mouth, then closed it. There wasn't much to say in the presence of paperwork and witnesses. Dinner ended early. People avoided eye contact. The pie went untouched. Outside, the air smelled like wood smoke and wet leaves. I stood on the front steps while the house hummed behind me, voices low, controlled. Emily came out a few minutes later. She wrapped her arms around herself. "Not from cold. I wasn't trying to steal it," she said. "I know," I replied. That was the hardest part. She hadn't wanted my money. She'd wanted control. She'd wanted to decide when I was worthy. "I never asked you to manage me," I said. "I just needed you to believe, figure it out." She didn't answer that. A week later, the deed was officially in my name. Grandpa called to confirm, his brisk, almost businesslike. "It's yours," he said. "Do what you think is right." I didn't move in immediately. I rented a small studio instead, paid for with contract work I'd pieced together. I wanted the Vermont house to feel like a choice, not a rescue. Emily and I speak, but differently now. There's less assumption in our conversations. Less hierarchy. She doesn't offer to handle things anymore. The house still stands in Vermont, overlooking a lake that freezes clean and bright in winter. I visit sometimes. I unlock the door myself, owning it didn't fix everything. It didn't give me back the months of doubt or the nights I wondered if I really was too unstable to trust. But it did something quieter. It reminded me that being underestimated isn't a verdict. Sometimes it's just a misunderstanding waiting for documentation. And sometimes reclaiming yourself isn't loud, it's just signing your own name.